Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, a podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, we feature professional Scrum trainers and other Scrum practitioners sharing their stories and experiences to help learn from the experience of others. This episode is a previous recording of our live Ask a Professional Scrum Trainer series, where a live audience asks questions of professional Scrum trainers. We hope you enjoy this episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located today. Welcome to today's Ask a Professional Scrum Trainer. I'm Lindsay Velasina here with Scrum.org. I'm going to be moderating our session today, and we are super lucky to have one of our professional Scrum trainers here, Bart Versteegen, out of the Netherlands, and he's going to be answering your Scrum Master questions. So get those ready, and I'll tell you in a moment here how you can start submitting those. So welcome. So very quick guidelines here. You'll notice that your microphones are muted. We do want you to ask questions though, so please utilize the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to enter all of your questions. If you have any technical questions, you can utilize the chat, which I will open up in a moment. So with that, I'll just very quickly introduce Scrum.org in the event that you aren't familiar. We are the home of Scrum. We were founded by Ken Schwaber back in 2009, one of the co-creators of Scrum, and our mission is to help people and teams solve complex problems. And we do so through our training, certification, and ongoing learning. So we hope that today's session plays an important part in that ongoing learning. There are a lot of free ways to learn about Scrum on our website, so please check those out. There are a lot of learning series that you could go through and other webinars, podcasts, etc. So please be sure to take advantage of those, and it looks like you already are since you're here today. So with that, I will pass it over to Bart to introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Welcome, everyone. I'm not seeing any faces. That's a bit irregular for me. So, if you're looking at me and you're seeing a nervous trainer, coach, and consultant, it's because I can't see you, and I'm so used to it. Let's start at the beginning. My name is Bart, and indeed, I live in the Netherlands. I have been working in product management for around 10 years already. I'm a father of two small daughters, 2 years and now almost 3 months. So if I'm looking a bit tired, it's not you, it's most likely the lack of sleep, unfortunately. Next to my home life, I also have a business life, of course. I'm employed by ProAwareness, one of the biggest consultancy firms within Western Europe. We focus on that segment of the market. And at ProAwareness, I'm a full-time product consultant, which means my main focus is product management. And by focusing on product management, I help leadership and Scrum Masters to enable them and to gain knowledge on the topic of product. Next to my work at ProAwareness, I am a podcast host together with another PST Stas Pavlov. I have the Agile BS podcast. For now, that's in Dutch, but we will be going into English in the near future. I am an author to be. My book, A Toolkit for Product Owners and Product Managers, will be published in November of this year. We will also be translating that to English and also be publishing it in an ebook format. So also for our international visitors, yes, you can buy it somewhere at the end of the year. And for the last 10 years working at ProAwareness, I've been a Scrum Master myself. I've been working as an Agile coach, which is for me nothing else than a Scrum Master without a Scrum team. I've been working as a product owner, a product manager, and everything in between. So my experience is broad in very different segments of working fields, so to say. So that's me in a short notice. And then, of course, I also have a private life next to having a beautiful wife and 2 daughters. I have multiple hobbies, and then my current biggest ones are woodworking and craft beer. But be aware they can't be combined. Just a small warning for today.
Pro tip.
So that pro tip, yeah, I don't think it should be a pro tip. I think it should be just a tip. But meh. I think that would be it for now. So just some information about me, and then of course we have 55 minutes left to answer every question around the Scrum Master Accountability and Scrum itself. So
Fantastic.
looking
Thank you,
forward.
Bart. Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing here. So, why don't you set the stage for us? So, you chose to so that to help our guide our audience in their question asking here. So, what made you choose to focus this session on the Scrum Master?
Well, my choice was made around the Scrum Master Accountability because, at least in the Netherlands and a big part of Western Europe, I see a lot of Scrum Masters limiting themselves in only focusing on team productivity, team efficiency, and maybe better ways to do refinement in such form, so to say. And I think, um, at least in my market segment, that means that you're limiting yourself in growth opportunities, in making organizations more effective,
Right?
and also in the personal development of the people around you, especially people within a product responsibility. So I thought most of the courses that I teach are PSPO, PSPO Advanced, the Professional Scrum Product Backlog Management Skills Training, PPDV. It's all product based. I do little work with Scrum Masters, so why not take the podium to address them directly? And no better podium than a Scrum.org webinar. So I think that's the reasoning behind it.
Awesome. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. So it's great that we have open forum here with Bart. So please submit your questions. So we have a few that have come in. So what are some of the typical errors you see new Scrum Masters make, and what can we learn from them?
That's a beautiful question. I think a typical typical error, if you could define one, of beginning Scrum Masters is focusing on how Scrum is described within the Scrum Guide and following that to the letter. There, of course, is a lot of value in the Scrum Guide because it helps you to navigate complex environments, complex product development. Um, but it should only be treated as such, as a guide to help you find ways to improve and be more effective in that complex environment. And if you only focus on what's in the Scrum Guide itself, then you're limiting yourself on discovering new practices and discovering new ways of working. I think that's what Scrum is all about. Knowing what you don't know, or not knowing what you don't know, actually, and encountering a lot of problems and challenges, and then finding ways to solve those complex problems. And so focusing on Scrum, I think that's one. Next to that, I see a lot of beginner Scrum Masters, if you could call them that, focusing on team efficiency. I still see a lot of clients and organizations focusing on what metrics should we introduce, for instance, or what metrics should we implement to have a better understanding of how teams are performing. And we still have some of the myths around velocity, going through the professional Scrum community. And I think there are a lot of professional Scrum trainers who say a lot of relevant um, stuff. Let's use the word stuff. Why not? Let's say a lot of relevant stuff based on the topic of velocity. And it's nothing more than a vanity metric. So only focusing on what I like to call output doesn't say anything about value. So I think that would be the second beginner or the rookie mistake. Maybe rookie is an even nicer word to use. And beginner or rookie mistake number three, let's call it like that, I think would be passing along the microphone during the daily scrum, right? We all know the three questions that are regularly used in daily scrums. What have I done yesterday? What am I going to be doing today? Do I have any impediments? Yes or no? And what you do, or what you try to introduce with that way of working, is some sort of zombie scrum, only following the processes that are in that daily scrum, but saying nothing about the value that is actually being created, saying nothing about customers, saying nothing about goals. There's a reason why you have introduced product goals within the Scrum Guide of 2020. And the Daily Scrum has only one goal, in my opinion, and that is having the conversation: are we moving into reaching our sprint goal, yes or no? And those three questions could be valuable, but in most cases, they're not that valuable, to be honest. So skip them, and have the conversation about are we reaching our Scrum goal, yes or no?
Okay,
Hope
that
that
makes a
helps.
lot of sense. Yeah. Did you have something else to add there, or are you good? That was a pretty comprehensive answer.
I'm good. Yeah,
Okay.
let's go to the second one.
Nice. Okay, so as a current technical developer in an agile team, how does one transition into a Scrum Master role? I have my PSM, but I am struggling to transition due to no actual experience.
Right. That's a good question, and let me start by congratulating the person that wants to transfer to that Scrum Master Accountability, because I think it's a wonderful way to start your journey into the more agile focused roles. I
Yes.
think my number one tip would be to start shadowing the Scrum Master that's already in the team or working with the team, and having conversations about, okay, I currently am a developer. That's my main role. That's my main function. But I would love to transform or transfer to that Scrum Master Accountability. What are some of the first steps that I can take? And I think a good stepping stone would be to start facilitating more and more sessions, because I think facilitating is a skill that every product owner, product manager, agile coach, manager, leader, or Scrum Master um, should have. And I think it's very undervalued and underrated how important good facilitation really is. So I would urge this person, whoever you are, have the conversation with Scrum Master that's already on your team, and think about ways. Okay, how can I start facilitating some of the events, maybe some of the workshops that are being done, and start by that, and maybe focus on what the developers within the Scrum team need. Try to solve some impediments. Try to have some conversations with management or leadership around the team, and try to unblock the team and help them move them along.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope that helps. Good luck and also congratulations. That's exciting to embark on a new career move there. So awesome. Next question here. I have a team that I believe that believes that it is the job scope of a Scrum Master to always host retrospective sessions. However, I have a different view. From my perspective, the Scrum Master is someone that established the agile practices, especially Scrum, into the team. When this practice is well established, like writing product backlog items, hosting the retrospective can be delegated to other Scrum team members when there's no major impediment happening because the Scrum Master still needs to serve the organization. What is your opinion on this?
I totally agree. Next question. No, no, it's small joke. You're totally right. As a Scrum Master, you're not responsible for facilitating every event or workshop. You're responsible for making sure that an event is facilitated in an effective manner. And that can be done by delegating the facilitation itself, or it can be done by facilitating it yourself. Um, so I would say the same thing to product owners than I would to Scrum Masters. Your responsibility is indeed also on the topic of organizational development. For me, which I try to introduce at the beginning of this webinar, there's no difference between an agile coach and Scrum Master and a product manager and a product owner, except a product owner and a Scrum Master are working in a Scrum team, and a agile coach and a product manager don't, by definition. So as a Scrum Master, you should still and always focus on how is the organization going along in the agile journey, wherever you are in your agile journey. So making sure that you are not at every daily Scrum, making sure that you don't facilitate every refinement, making sure that you might transfer the facilitation of sprint events to different members of the Scrum team is a way to grow your mandate and to share accountability. So I would only applaud you for trying to go that way.
Thank you. Right. Next question. This is kind of similar in a way
Okay.
ish. Our sprint plannings are facilitated by product owners, and the Scrum Master is just there to oversee that the team follows the guidelines. What would you suggest
Oof.
to the Scrum Master to be alert of in that situation?
To be alert of in the situation that a product owner is facilitating the sprint planning, I
I
assume.
think so. That's just the best way I'm interpreting the question. But
Yeah.
what would you recommend to the Scrum Master to deal with that situation?
Um, I would first ask the question to myself: am I still needed in this meeting? Yes or no? And if I find myself to be zooming out and doing other stuff, checking my email, maybe playing a game on my phone, which isn't the most effective um, use of my time in that meeting, then I think you could leave it to the team, to be honest. And when I take a look at the sprint planning event, for me it consists of three parts, and you start by creating a sprint goal for the current sprint that you're starting. After that, you're selecting product backlog items from your product backlog, which you believe are helping you in reaching your sprint goal. And after that, you have the time to do some refinement if that's needed. And that's the sprint planning in itself. So for me, in the time that I was a Scrum Master with multiple clients, I forced forced in some way my developers and the product owner to take accountability around the sprint planning event. So they themselves could come up with a sprint goal that was a stepping stone into reaching the product goal, and they themselves could select product backlog items out of the product backlog without me telling them, okay, now we're going to do a 1, 2, 4 all liberating structure to come up with ways on reach the sprint goal, yada yada yada. At a certain moment in time, they can do that themselves. So if I, as a Scrum Master, would be in this event and I have a product owner that is capable on facilitating groups like a Scrum team, and I see the product owner is not forcing the developers on taking around more scope that they can chew, and at the same time, I also see developers pushing back a product owner because he or she is forcing items into the sprint. That's all for me healthy behavior. So that means that I have done my job. Uh, I've done my job properly, and now I can take a more of a backseat and maybe don't be in the sprint planning event for the entire time box. Um, that would be my. That's what I would do in your situation.
Makes a lot of
And I hope
sense.
that helps. Yeah, it's a hard question for me to answer without all of the context, but that's what I would do.
Okay, thank you. I hope that helps. And if you have anything follow up from that, feel free to drop that in the Q&A. So this next one here, let's just move right along. We have lots of questions coming in. So what would you suggest to look out for when the role of the Scrum Master and Project Manager are combined?
Oof. That answer opens up a Pandora's box because I have multiple questions. Maybe back to the person submitting that question. Combining a project manager and a scrum master role. Well, for me, that would be the same as combining a scrum master with a product owner accountability. You can't be both at the same time. You can't make sure that Scrum is effective when you're also responsible for making sure that value is being maximized. And yes, in theory, you could combine both accountabilities, but in practice, it would be very hard to do so. Um,
But there
and
are cases where the project manager does serve as a Scrum Master, right?
yeah, there could be. There could be cases where a project manager is serving as a scrum master.
So if
And yeah,
that's happening
yeah.
in the organization, and the person in that role has like no real control over that, what would you suggest they look out for being in that situation? I'm just helping to try to guide the question a little bit, try to dig
Yeah.
into the listener's head a little bit. And if I'm going the wrong way, feel free to chat me um, to the person who asked this question.
Yeah. Um, yeah, don't be sitting on the chair of the product owner, I think. That would be my go-to answer because if I've been in the same situation. I've been a
It's not
Scrum
product
Master.
owner, though. It's project manager and Scrum Master.
Yeah, yeah, I know, I
Okay.
understand. But if we have a product owner and a project manager working on the same project or product, um, then we might have some overlapping accountabilities,
Right.
right? So, and that would likely lead to a project manager steering the product development in a certain way, and a product owner, most
Right.
likely without the accountability that he or she needs, also trying to steer the product in a certain way. Um, so then again, it's a hard question to answer without all of the context, but I think I would advise you to try to be very clear to the persons that you're working with. Okay, I'm now being a Scrum Master and I'm now being a project manager, and my accountabilities as project manager are A, B, and C, and my accountabilities as Scrum Master are 1, 2, and 3, and I'm only focusing on being a Scrum Master at this moment in time for this team. I think that would be my best answer.
Okay, yeah. So if you have any follow-up questions and want to provide more context, feel free to drop that into the Q&A
Please do.
and we will raise this again and try to get to the bottom of your challenge there. So
Yeah.
thank you, Bart.
Also, and let me add something to that, Lindsay. Also, after this webinar, of course, if you have the feeling that then an answer needs some more reflection, drop in my LinkedIn inbox, ask your question there. Maybe we can co-create a blog and publish it on the Scrum.org community, which would be a nice addition maybe after this webinar. Just an
Yeah,
idea.
absolutely. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So this next question, to what extent should a Scrum Master intervene in team decision making without undermining the team's self-management?
Oof. Could you repeat the question one more time?
So, to what extent should a Scrum Master intervene in team decision making without undermining the team's self-management? So, if the team is
Yeah.
struggling with making a decision, but the Scrum Master wants them to be self-managing, what's the balance there for the Scrum
Yeah.
Master to kind of push a decision along?
Yeah. Yeah, you can't force people to self-manage, right? That's a bit hard. So when you don't give
Right?
them, when they're not mature in their job, um, and they lack focus that's being given them, that's being given to them by leadership. What ways? So that could mean product ownership. That could be management, and then that will most likely lead to chaos. So I've done a small talk about that in Dutch. And, I'm writing an article on it, and it's an article based on the concept of learning money. And learning money is something that a facilitator um, can spend within the game, and just like placing a bet in a casino. And learning money is money that you can invest and that you're okay with in not getting a return on it. And so it all depends on the situation and how far along the team is, and how much learning money you would like to invest in this certain situation. So I would always try to prevent that you make something that's irreversible. But I would at the same time also would like to push the team in some way to make mistakes and to create some failures, because failures create learning, and learning creates new opportunities to take ownership. So it entirely depends on the context that you're in and how much learning money you will be willing to spend. If this scenario is around releasing a certain version of your product, then the learning money that you would like to invest might be lower than if it's only about a team member facilitating a retrospective, for instance. And in that last case, if that's the case, and maybe following up from one of the previous questions, if we have a team member within the Scrum team that is willing to pick up the Scrum Master accountability, and you as a Scrum Master are um, eager to invest your learning money into him or her, then I would be okay with having a retrospective that is not as effective as it could be. Because we create a learning moment for that Scrum Master to be, and we create a learning moment for the team to also help a team member who is picking up some new accountabilities. So it all depends on the context, and it all depends on how much learning money you will be willing to invest in.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. All right.
You're
So
welcome.
this next question. So what leadership skills have you found work the best for you while working with agile teams? And what leadership skills work the best for individuals outside of the agile team? So let's talk a little bit about leadership and agile leadership.
Okay. So leadership within agile teams and leadership outside of agile teams. That's what we're saying, right?
Yes. So maybe
Yeah.
if you have a few examples from your experience that you can kind of share to kind of illustrate some examples, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. So I'm thinking around some scenarios that I encountered. Um, I think for me, leadership sums it down to being very leadership. No, I would define leadership as having the ability to be concrete and concise on what you want to achieve, and to be vulnerable in how you're going to be doing that. So when I had my last Scrum Master assignment, one of the first things that I've done was answering in an honest way. So if in most cases, what consultants do, at least, is they try to reflect the question. If someone comes up to me and asks, well, Bart, I have this and this scenario. What do you think I should do? Then my consultant answered could be, well, if I had the same question as you, what would be your advice to me? And then in most cases, the person asking the question will answer the question. But that's deflecting. And I have learned by falling on my face quite a few times that answering in meetings that you just don't know something and that you're trying to fix it or find it out into within a week or within a day uh, opens up entire groups of people, and it opens up a different conversation on being transparent and being vulnerable in a working setting. So leadership within a Scrum team is, for me, is all about having the ability to be vulnerable, um, admitting that you don't know stuff when you don't know stuff, and don't make up an answer or try to deflect it in some way. And as a leader, which could be, you could be a leader in a technical role, being a software engineer, for instance. You could be a leader in when being a tester, software tester. You could be a leader when you have the product owner accountability. You could be the leader when you have a Scrum Master accountability. For me, it all comes down to being concrete and concise. So as a Scrum Master, if I give feedback, it's concrete and concise. I've seen you doing this and that made me feel this and this way. So I'm um, having a conversation about something that I've experienced. That means for a product owner, for instance, um, this is the product that we're working on. This is the product vision that I would love to achieve somewhere in the near future, which means 2 to 5 years for a product vision. And for the upcoming 6 months, and this is the product goal that we have. And every stakeholder that comes to me or that comes to you, dear developers or Scrum Master, with a request that doesn't add value to reaching our our product goal, um, will most likely be a no to the question: Are we going to put this on our product backlog? Yes or no? So concrete, concise, and being vulnerable. And I think the second part of the question was, okay, what kind of leadership have you seen happening outside of Scrum teams? Um, For me, that would be implementing the concept of learning money. And the best managers that I've worked with as a product owner or as Scrum Masters, I've always had some conversation about, okay, what is the maximum amount of damage that I can do with my Scrum team, which is still okay for you, which is manageable to your stakeholders. What's the biggest amount of learning money that I can invest? Actually, I think that was the conversation that I had. And that leads to a conversation about safety, that leads to a conversation about learning, and that leads to a conversation about making sure that you focus on outcomes instead of output. And when you're working in an organization that's still focused on output instead of outcome, then what happens is, okay, we want realistic plans, and realistic plans in our case means we need to reach or meet every plan that we create. But if you're in a truly complex environment, you don't know what you don't know. And that will also lead to you not meeting the plans that you've created, yeah, because you encounter a lot of stuff that's just complex that you don't know. Um, so leaders outside of agile teams, they make room for the teams to learn, and they have a clear answer on how much learning money the teams can spend, and they have a clear answer on what needs to be achieved. And last but not least, they are a vehicle to help the teams forward. So they are the ultimate impediment removers, where a Scrum Master, unfortunately, doesn't have a lot of sway in organizations to take a position in, okay, we're going right or we're going left. Um, People in a leadership position in organizations, they do. So when we're talking about doing an agile transformation, you always need some sort of a sponsor in a management team that can help you remove roadblocks, that can help you remove impediments. So you're the ultimate impediment remover, I would say, uh, with a big bag of money to invest some learning spending.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope that helps. So this next one here, in organizations where Scrum Masters are expected to show tangible impact, what are the most meaningful ways to demonstrate value without falling back on vanity metrics like velocity?
Ooh. What's the? Could you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. I read that kind of fast.
You
So
did. Yeah.
in organizations where Scrum Masters are expected to show tangible impact, what are the most meaningful ways to demonstrate value without falling back on vanity metrics like velocity?
I think that would come up. That would be. That's a good question, by the way.
It is a very
Uh,
good question.
yeah. For me, that would come down to, are we releasing potential releasable product increments every sprint? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
So are we able to release something of potential value to customers every sprint, or on a more regular basis? And are we having an impact on value metrics, whatever value metrics you might have for your product? So it would be based on, uh, does does the team has does the team have every capability to release portions of value to customers? Yes or no? It's not about planning. It's not about uh, happy people within a team. Of course, that's a big part of your job and it should be important, but it can't be measured. It's not about lines of code. No. Uh, it's about, are we able to release potential releasable product increments every sprint? And potential releasable, dear gentle people, also means that we have the ability to release something that adheres to our definition of done. So releasing actual value is always of a high quality. We're not introducing MVPs, which are built in a bad way, and then we call them MVPs, and then it's okay. within some organizations. For me, that's not professional software development. That's not professional product development. Everything that you do release is of high quality. So if you're able as a Scrum Master to make sure that teams have that capability, and where you can see, okay, I've been working with this team for over 4 to 6 to 9 to 12 months. They've improved their release frequency. They have maybe minimized their bugs that were being introduced into the software after releases. We have seen customer retention going up. We have seen customer happiness going up. Um, then I think you can call yourself successful as a Scrum Master. Um, and maybe at the same time also taking a look at some of the accountabilities, of course, as a Scrum Master, based on how many times you're still asked to facilitate a certain meeting. So if a team, uh, if developers can maybe facilitate refinements, if a product owner is able to facilitate a sprint review by him or herself, then I think you're moving into the direction of self-management. And self-management next to improving of customer metrics, next to improvement of release frequency, would for me be a key figure that tells me something about, okay, this team is going to be successful in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
So I hope that helps. Next question here. So how can we come up with a sprint goal when every team member is working on different projects?
Ooh. That's a good question. My my first question would be, do you have a product goal, yes or no? In most cases, when I encounter this question, we have a team, and the team all has different projects to work on, and maybe the team all has different accountabilities. So we have, of course, everyone within a Scrum team working on a product is called a developer, but within organizations, those developers also have functions. And maybe someone is a backend engineer, maybe someone is a software tester, maybe someone is a front end engineer, maybe someone is a business analyst. And they all are adding value to the sprint because they're being a developer within a sprint, but they are not likely to work together on a single product backlog item. And so for me, that would come down to two things. First, think about, okay, do we have a product goal? Yes or no? If you do, awesome. If you don't, create one. And make sure that the product owner that you're working with creates one. Maybe you as a Scrum Master should help your product owner in doing so. Because if you have a product owner, then it's also way easier to come up with a sprint goal. Then you have the ability to create sprint goals that are not output focused, but are actually outcome focused. So that would be number one. And number two would be, I've thought of something genius, but it just slipped my mind. So that was something that I was planning on saying. Make sure that if you are within that Scrum team that has lots of different kind of developers, lots of different tastes, right? So as I mentioned, the business analyst, the front-end engineer, back-end engineer, make sure that you spend some time on learning each other's skills and learning each other's backgrounds and techniques. And I'm not using the proper English words for this, of course, but if you want to be a truly self-organizing Scrum team, if you want to have the ability to take over each other's work, then you also need to spend some time on better understanding, okay, what is the job of the person next to me? And so that would mean that you reserve maybe 20% of the time of the sprint, or maybe 30% of the time of the sprint, that you're working in on developing your skill set. That could lead to front-end engineers also doing some business analysis. That could mean that back-end engineers become full-stack engineers. That could mean that business analysts also start testing software. And yes, that's hard. And yes, that's not likely going to happen in every organization. And that is down to the fact that most organizations are still focused on delivering feature after feature after feature, or delivering output after output after output. So that means an investment in learning money. That means an investment in not maximizing the delivery of the team, but minimizing the truck factor within the team. So that's what I would do. Make sure that you have a protocol. Make sure that you spend enough time on developing the skill set of all of the people within the Scrum team.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. All right, this next one here. So, what are some methods to promote engagement in sprint planning and backlog refinement? The team I am working on is new to Scrum and hands off with planning. There's often issues added during the sprint. Would like to engage them in proactive planning.
Okay. I'm just thinking about what the problem could be that this person is encountering with this situation. It feels to me like
The team
the team,
isn't really speaking up during
yeah,
planning
yeah,
is what I'm getting from, or refinement. And then there's things that pop up during the sprint that could have been covered in planning or refinement.
yeah,
That's what I'm getting from it. And if we're
yeah,
wrong,
me
let
as
us
well.
know.
Yeah, please let us know. Yeah, so if it could be prevented, and it should have been prevented, of course, then that's the signal that you should improve your ways of working during refinement and sprint planning. If it wasn't preventable, then that's just a sign that you're in a complex environment, and that's okay. That's why we use Scrum to find ways that work within our complex environment that we work in. But if it's preventable, then I would focus as a Scrum Master on not speaking so much and just sitting back, just like this, and
That's
maybe
good advice.
crossing your arms and sit on your hands, just like this. Um, and let the team have the conversation. So make it just a bit uncomfortable, like we're not speaking for around 20 to 30 seconds. And then in most cases, someone will speak up. And then the conversation will start. Yeah, so maybe my go-to suggestion would just be to shut your mouth for a moment and find
Yeah,
out.
that's definitely something to try. I like that idea.
But
Hope
then
that
again,
helps.
if it doesn't fulfill your needs, speak up in the chat. Find me on LinkedIn. We can chat after.
Absolutely. All right. So, what should a Scrum Master do if they feel ineffective within the team?
Ooh.
Kind of like an
Uh,
open question, but I imagine this as someone who feels like they just can't make an impact.
yeah, find another job. I don't know. Yeah, hard to question. Um, if that question would be directed to me, if I would be coaching a Scrum Master and that Scrum Master would have the feeling, okay, I'm not being effective, I would advise him or her to go back to the team and ask the same question to the team.
Right.
So their team, what do you think of my performance? Do you agree with this statement that I made? Am I not being effective? Yes or no? So what do you guys think? Um, yeah, that would be my first step. And then after find out if it's only a feeling or if it's actually the truth. It could be the truth. It could be. And that could open you to having more flexibility and freedom to help improve the organization. Or maybe take on a second team um, next to the team that you're working with now. Or maybe a third. Or maybe even more. I wouldn't advise you to, but it could be a solution.
Okay. Thank you. And then someone chimed in the chat too that said to ask for feedback.
Yeah,
Yep.
ask for feedback. Make it transparent.
And then somebody else. Oh, this is just another question. So if you're dropping just a public service announcement for our audience here, if you're dropping questions into the chat, if you could please move them over to the Q&A, that would be really helpful. The chat is primarily for technical questions or just comments, but we want to make sure we capture all the questions in the Q&A panel. So thank you for that. So what are the biggest challenges with team communication? Mainly relationships with product owners, and how do you overcome high expectations? So they're asking what the biggest challenges are with team communication, but I'm going to flip that just a little bit. Like, how do you improve um, these communication issues, um, particularly with product owners?
Yeah, yeah, we are a strange breed. Um, I would advise you to do something outside the office. So in the Netherlands, it's quite normal to have a drink, to have a few drinks with colleagues. Um, that would be my go-to advice. Spend some time together outside of the office because in most cases, many of the communications problems that you encounter are then magically solved because you're having conversations on another level. Um, but I also think when looking at the different accountabilities within a Scrum team, a Scrum Master has a responsibility on making sure that a product owner isn't being seen as a manager or a true leader within a Scrum team. And so a product owner is not a manager. You're still part of the same Scrum team. You just have a different set of accountabilities. And uh, if a few of the developers or if every developer and a scrum master is looking up to the product owner because he or she decides what we're doing, yeah, then you will never have that effective self-managing team. So for me, that would be two things. Spend some time outside of the office, and as a scrum master, make sure that you are aware of the behaviors and the way of communicating and the way how people are looking at the product owner. He or she is nothing more than a team member. He's not your boss or she is not your boss. It's just a member of the team. What could also help, and that's an exercise that I do in many of my training or workshops, is to do something that I like to call the green and red zone behavior exercise. And that's based around the 5 Scrum values, of course. And we know them by heart: focus, respect, openness, courage, and commitment. And what I do in workshops is I put up 5 flip over papers, or I have 5 whiteboards spread around a room. And the topic on that whiteboard or flip over paper is one of the 5 Scrum values. And we have a left side and we have a right side. And the left side is red zone behavior, so behavior that we don't like to see around that value. And the green zone is, of course, behavior that we would promote around the value of, for instance, respect. And that could lead to some sort of a team agreement on how you guys work together. Yeah. So that's what I would like to advise you. Spend some time outside of the office. Be aware of um, how does the team look at each other, and maybe do something like a red zone green zone behavior exercise.
A great suggestion. Thank you. All right, so this next one here. So before I dive into the next question, I want to revisit a question from earlier. A little more context was shared. I
Right.
don't know if you'll have any additional commentary, but I wanted to share this. So the question originally was, what do you suggest to be careful with or be mindful of when the role of the Scrum Master and Project Manager are combined? So we got a little more context here.
Perfect.
I don't agree with this process at my organization. We as Scrum Masters handle the initial phase of the project, and once the stories are being written and refined, the product owner takes care of the project. The Scrum Master is just informed about the project. So they feel like the roles and the accountabilities are all mixed up. So
Yeah.
that's kind of more
I
context there for that initial question.
yeah. I would agree. It sounds to me like a scrum master is helping a team to start and being some sort of a business analyst, maybe a mini project manager, I think. And after doing so, a product owner takes over, and he or she then becomes accountable for the project or the product development efforts. And I think, but that's an assumption. So if I'm wrong, I'm very sorry. But I think that's due to the fact because Scrum Masters are being seen as delivery managers within this certain organization. And uh, yes, we could have a conversation about are Scrum Masters a delivery manager, but with a new title. I don't agree with that statement. I think you're a change agent and a coach and a facilitator and a teacher, and that should be your accountability. Your accountability as Scrum Master has nothing to do with a project or how a project is being set up or the elements or the substance of a project. That's the accountability of a product owner and the developers within Scrum. So yeah, there's still some work to do on teaching the organization what Scrum Master accountability really is, I think.
Thank you. All right. And thank you for providing more context there as well.
Yes, indeed.
So this next one here. So I work in an organization where we don't have product goals. We we just start with a product vision and now struggle to come up with relevant sprint goals, which I think is due to the lack of product goals, which is something that you referred to earlier as well.
Yeah.
So, how can I practically help or coach the product owner in finding relevant product goals? Or am I one of the rookie Scrum Masters who tries to follow Scrum by the book too much?
It could be both. Um, but then again, I would advise you to coach your product owner into having and creating those product goals. So I think um, that product owner should have a conversation with his or her stakeholders about the vision and the strategy of the organization. Product goal is not created by a product owner in a meeting room and then thinking about, okay, I have a product and now I'm going to move this product into this direction because I'm the product owner and I'm the CEO of my product. Yes, you are the CEO of your product, but then at the same time, you're still part of a bigger organization with an organizational vision and a business strategy behind it. So a product owner should know, okay, this is the organizational vision and this is the business strategy. These are the ways that we make money, and my product is most likely going to add value to that strategy. So I would advise that Scrum Master to have the conversation with the product owner, their product owner. Um, what is the organizational vision? And what is the business strategy? And in what way do you think our product adds value to the strategy of our IT department, of our entire business strategy, of our department strategy, of on what level you're currently operating? Because there needs to be some sort of a connection to the product or the project that the Scrum teams are delivering and to the bigger strategy. And there's something missing now currently there. So have that conversation together with your or together with the product owner at first, and then maybe have that conversation within a sprint review. You have your sprint review event, you have your stakeholders present over there. Most likely, they are the most important stakeholders that you have. And I hope they can answer the question, what is the current business strategy and how does this product add value to the strategy that we have?
Okay. Thank you. All right. So we have time here for maybe one or two more questions. There are quite a few open questions, so I will be sure to share these with Bart after the session, and we'll figure out a way to get them addressed. So if we don't get to your question, we will figure out a way to address it in some way, shape, or form. So don't worry about that. So this one here. So I'm starting as a Scrum Master soon at a new big organization. Congrats. From your experience, what are the first things I should focus on in my first few weeks to set myself and the team up for success?
Ooh, beautiful question. I would focus on what's the amount of time that it takes for impediments to be resolved. And in most bigger organizations, impediments need to be resolved by other people than you. So what is the time that it takes for impediments to be resolved? I would at first, if you have the ability, to just observe the team and the organization for around 2 to 4 weeks. And so you don't jump in, and you jump in on putting out every fire, and you start facilitating right away because you might miss some important information to do your job in a more effective way. So at first, lean back, observe, spend some time gathering information. After that, gather information around the topic of, okay, how much time does it take for impediments to be resolved? What is our release frequency, for instance? What is the connection between our product and the bigger organizational structure and strategy? So does the product owner need to do some more work around that topic? How effective are our Scrum events, and do we have everything in place that we need to create value? And for me, the essential elements are: do we have a product goal? Are we able to come up with sprint goals that are focused on outcome? And do we have a clear definition of done that we adhere to? That would be my main focus. So sit back, think about how much time it takes for impediments to be resolved, and then start working with your product owner on strategy and vision, product goals, sprint goals, and the definition of done together with the entire Scrum team. Hope that helps,
Thank
and hope
you.
you have a good start in
Good
your new,
luck.
at your new job. Awesome.
You're gonna rock it. All right, so next question here. In case you have an unconventional team setup where you are a Scrum Master working together with an Agile team manager in the same team, how would you make sure that both roles can function complementary instead of canceling each other out?
I have no clue what an agile team manager is.
Neither
I'm
do I.
sorry. No, I'm not sure how to answer that question. My assumption is that an agile team manager would be responsible for everything around human resources. So maybe hiring and firing, maybe promoting people, making maybe the well-being of the people, and all of those topics. So you're more you're something like a people manager, and then you have the Scrum Master Accountability. And if that would be the case, then I think those two accountabilities could be easily divided. I would be a Scrum Master and focusing on the effectiveness of the people within the team and the team itself, and of course the entire organization, and for the well-being of the people, for all of the more serious and heavy cases, I would work together with that agile team manager. So I've been in some sort of same context within a semi-government organization that I've been a part of, where I've been a Scrum Master, and I had some sort of a people manager working on the team. And something that I did was having, not for every member on the team, but for some of the members of the team, had weekly one-on-one sessions just to have a conversation about how are you feeling? Are you doing okay? Do you need some help? Is there something blocking you? Um, uh, and all other kinds of topics. And if I found that there was some topic that we needed some help with, then I would, together with the team member, have a conversation with our people manager about, okay, we have had this conversation. I can't help this person any further than this. Now, please step in and help us create more value by removing this impediment. So yeah, that's what I would do. But I might be missing some more context. So if you could elaborate on your question in any way, I would be more than willing to answer it maybe even better.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of it along the same lines.
I'm
Somebody
seeing the response
replied and
from
said, you
Alan.
did indeed answer it just the right way. So we got it. Good job, Bart. All
Thank you
right.
so much.
So unfortunately, we are at our hour. Thank you so much to our listeners who sent in so many great questions. Usually in these sessions, I group questions together. There were very few that were like similar to group together. They were very diverse group of questions. So thank you so much. It looks like there's still a few questions coming in into the chat. I'll give you like a moment here to just move them over to the Q&A because that's the report that I export after this that I'm going to share with Bart. So if you typed questions that have been unanswered, please add them to the Q&A now. And while we wrap up here, Bart, are there any parting advice or that you want to share with this group? And also the best way to connect with you, I believe, is on LinkedIn, correct?
Yeah. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. I have a very Dutch name, and even in the Netherlands, there are not a lot of people who are named Bart Verstegen, so it's quite easy. I'm quite easy to find. You can also take a look at my employer's website, which is proawareness.com. There you can find me. We are also publishing on YouTube. So if you search YouTube, the video platform, and you search for Agile BS, then you can find the channel that I've created together with fellow PST Stas Pavlov. Um, that's the easiest way. So please feel free to connect and to link with me in every way, any way possible. You can also send me an email. I think my email is out and about in the wide world web. So please do so. And some advice for all of the participants. Yeah, don't uh, don't make everything too heavy. Have some fun in your work. I think uh, we have an awesome job. We have an awesome community of agile experts all over the world, and it's a fun community to be a part of. So have some fun in your job and do your job properly, but with a lot of fun. It makes getting up in the morning just a bit easier. So yeah, that would be my last advice.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Bart. And thank you to our listeners for all the great questions. And we hope to see you at a session again soon. So thank you, everybody, and scrum on.